So carrying on with the topic of information wars and understanding how information wars have an impact in the psyche of a society and how a society can transform itself. Now, the second part I want to talk about is that the society itself is a society. I want to put it across to you that a society cannot transform itself. Do you understand? There is actually individuals, a few individuals that move a whole society, that transform or inspire a whole society. That is why you have celebrities who do a certain style and everybody follows. Because society is not self-regulating. Society is got a very low self-esteem. It needs leaders, it needs to be led. Therefore, those that are powerful and thoughtful, that they think that thought think tanks out there, they engineer plans on how to destroy multiple societies around the world for the purposes of taking the resources within the area that that society lives. Because we do know that, like you, I mean, in the modern democratic system, the governments are governed by the people for the people. You know that that dogma is not really followed in reality. Most of the times that is what is just a political rhetoric, but the reality is that societies are governed by the rich and those who have got the means, and they control governments, they control politicians. But then you see, people like to complain that politicians are controlled by the rich. Now I come to realize that it is actually a good thing that the rich run society, because the poor cannot run society. The proliferate cannot run society. There has to be an elite that runs any society or any nation. So it is impossible to think that liberation means we the people, we the majority are going to rule. We're going to take power from the few who are on top. That's a pipe dream. It is impossible. The only time it happens, it is when you are made to believe that it is happening that way. You are probably going to have a populist leader who's going to be catapulted into power. Look, for example, someone like Nelson Mandela. He will be catapulted into power, and then you will think that us black people have got a black leader, Nelson Mandela. But Nelson Mandela spent time after the spend time in orientation, with the elite. That's why people say Nelson Mandela sold. But he actually did not sell. He came to terms with the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation that the majority cannot rule. Can you imagine if Nelson Mandela just refused everything that the white people say and said we're going to take this country as black people? As corrupt as ANC is right now, with white people there, imagine if they were alone, black people alone, South Africa would have become a banana republic within 3 months. And people as a whole trying to run a society through the majority does not work. It has never worked and it will never work. Any society is at the mercy of the few who are the leaders, who are at the top, who are resourceful. Those few at the top are the ones who decide if that society is gonna plunge into poverty and deprivation, or is gonna rise into higher levels of glory. It so happens that country by the country, we see that the successful countries in the world have got their few leaders who have got better interests for the people that they rule than the other countries that fare poorly. For example, the former third world countries, or the currently African countries, the frontier markets in Africa and other regions of the world who are faring fairly less, you will see that their leadership is very poor because it is controlled by the West or those that are on top. It's either Europe or China or Russia. So you will see that those leaders already are corrupted by the ones that are on our globe, are on top in the globe, you know, sponsoring them to rise into political power to save the interests of the global elite. that global elite hold in their countries keep their people happy, you know, through making sure that the economic fundamentals are conducive for those people to live satisfying lives. And then when they come to these frontier markets like Africa and South America, you know, they will make sure that the rest of the population is poor, is always engaged in civil wars. Civil wars are always planted by the global elite and those that are above. People on a general level are never involved in any civil war in history. People can have squabbles and have personal fights here and there, but they never ever, or maybe if they do, they seldomly get involved into a civil strife. In every place where there's a civil war in any country or any region, it is sponsored by the leaders of those people or other people who are outsiders who influence the leaders of those people to incite violence, leading people into war, so that the destabilization of that country or region may lead to the manipulation of those people's resources. While the people are worried about the wars, the real culprits are actually taking the resources. Just like now in South Africa, as I'm saying in many of my videos, that the enemy now is sneaky and is doing something evil in South Africa by actually pitting against each other, brothers, South Africans and Africans against each other through this barbaric operation to Dula. It makes it appear as if South Africans hate Africans. Actually, as I say that these things are stoked by the leaders who are sponsored by the elite. So the elite choose who who wins and who loses. You see, so the elite actually organize these global systems or these in these global societies. It is the elite that chose that China must rise. The idea, I mean, that China rose and is now becoming the biggest economy in the world, it's not because the Chinese people were smart. No. Do you remember that Chairman Mao was a communist? You know, that was he was a socialist, right? So then we got the guy who took him. What's his name? The guy who took him from who took from Mao from the 1970s. His policies were pro-West. Why was he pro-West and liberalizing the economy of China in the early 1970s? Was it because he was a great think tank? No, it was because as a political actor, the global elites needed to use China as a cheaper factory for the world. So he said those things and did those political decisions at the behest of the global elite, and therefore we saw the rise of China because the global elite no longer wanted to produce in America. This is very simple. I mean, like if you don't need to be an A student to recognize this thing, that the global elite was producing in United States and they were producing in Japan. You know, Japan had a boom in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s in their telecommunications industry. And in United States, you can talk about the rust the Rust Belt, you know, in the Northern America states, of Detroit, and then we will talk about i- i- American manufacturing, Ford Motor Company, we're talking about all those General Electric. These are big American companies that were doing well in the United States. But then there has been this migration of American production to China. That is what catapulted, one of the reasons that catapulted Donald Trump into the presidency, because now the Americans themselves began to feel the pain of having the industrialization exported to China. So China grew, and became the global hub of what of manufacturing, not because the Chinese were smart. That's not the real reason. It's because the elite decided to use China in that way. And as a consequence, the society of China began to benefit in that. So the economy of China was able to participate in what one may call a trickle down economic miracle. And so China has been used now as the global manufacturing hub, such that now big companies, like Apple, now are producing products in China, and multiple other global brands are in China and in Southeast Asia. That is just a decision of the elite in the globe. It's not Malaysia or Thailand, these Asian tigers. We hear that the Asian tigers made some decisions that made their economies to grow. These Asian tigers, they made those decisions at the behest of the global elite, not because those politicians got an epiphany or some kind of revelation, like this illuminated thought that, oh, let us do this way for our country to succeed. They would have had some ideas, but ideas do not work unless we have got the rich people that back you up and the rich people that sponsor your success story. Poor people fare badly in leading. Poor people and many people in general do not really command economies and build societies that last longer. So the idea that the majority rules is in effect a fallacy of democracy, because democracy does not work. So in any case, because I told you that this is information wars, when the information war that attacks you as people, the information is this: democracy is gonna work for us. One man, one vote. The majority will lead us. Therefore, when you as a majority elect the people that you elect into power, you get to have this sense of achievement that it is you who is leading, but you are generally not making the daily decisions. There's one person that we've elected in power. Now, that person who is elected in power is a decision maker. But now here's a question: who really influences that person in power? Is it the majority that voted for him, or it is a powerful lobbyist who gave him the money, the campaigning money? By the way, these people that gave campaigning money to politicians, they will give to all political parties, therefore be getting access to control all of them. So my point here is that it is the rich and powerful that control politicians and therefore control global politics and wars and all of these things. So if they want to start a war, they can start it. If they want to stop it, they can stop it, just as they decide. It is not the people, it is not the ordinary people that decide to start wars. It is not the ordinary people that decide that certain policies be adopted by a government. It is actually even not the politicians that are purported to be the ones who are coming up with these policies, because they are directed by their bosses who employ them. Because these politicians, what they do not tell you is that they are actually employees of the rich people, but they are not working for you, poor people. They come to you, poor people, humbly as they appear, talking the talk of town and walking the walk, so that you buy into their story and begin to believe into them, thinking that this is our man who is going to transform us and take us to another level. But all of it is a lie. It is a fallacy. The real people that the politicians are working for are the global elite, the few people that are in power. If it's in a country, in some countries or in some smaller spheres, there will be people that have got money in that country that control those politicians. Every single country has got people with money that control politicians. Even on a global scale, we have even got a higher hierarchy where those that are rich in the whole world control other rich people in other countries. And therefore, these people, as I say, that as the global elite, they are able to work together, and come up with strategies. Sometimes that organization breaks down. So they are not really a unipolar universe. They have got multipolar architecture. And then sometimes, they wage wars against each other. So these wars are felt in the social engineering and the information wars that comes down to you people. So it tickles what trickles down is the information wars. From their disagreements in boardrooms, it's gonna come down to one station like CNN saying this, and another opposite station like Russia Today saying the opposite. What these television stations, that are opposing, it depends on which country we're in. In the United States, it will be CNN against Fox News. In South Africa, it will be ETV against SABC. In Zimbabwe, it would be ZBC, Chronicle and Herald against the Daily News. So all of those publications or those media houses, those information hubs, are actually speaking the ideas of those who are rich and want to control the resources. But they're not going to come directly and tell you that we rich guys are disagreeing with this thing, therefore follow me, I will do this for you. No, they will use politicians and they will use your realities. So now, if you as a certain people who have got a certain grievance, they will seek a political leader or a community leader, and they will sponsor that leader who will sponsor your grievance or who will talk about your grievance. And then you will support that person thinking that they are actually working for you and they're going to address that grievance. That person is by the way, sponsored by a rich person, so that when they get into that seat of power, their real job isn't about your grievance. Well, sometimes your grievance might be addressed if it is not an inconvenience to the sponsor. Even it, it will be much better if not only is it not an inconvenience, but it is in line with his agenda. He will indeed satisfy your grievance. But the real thing that he really needs is that position, that of authority, so that he will control that which they were arguing about, which is the control of the real resources, the natural resources and other financial resources like the economy, in different industries, like the opportunity to make the rules and regulation that govern the formality of our universe, of our communities. So that access to power, that access to control power, so that they can be able to monopolize whatever they monopolize, that is what the rich people specialize in. And therefore they use their employees, who are the various politicians. So the politicians, what they argue about most of the times, they are arguing about issues. To understand, they argue about issues that affect you and I. If you watch the parliament, you don't see in a parliament arguing whether uh, Google or Microsoft must have more access to the cloud, or whether Vodacom or MTN must have this bandwidth or not, or whether ESCOM must remain a government-owned entity, or the private power producers should come in as well. They do not address much of that. They have got like little ombudsmen that will be dealing with those things. They will be talking about the people who want houses, the people who want water, uh, you know, uh, people want land, or education, health, things that affect you and I. And therefore, that is why you people, as a matter of fact, are looking at them and looking at the candidates who speak better about what you desire to see happening. So the candidate who speaks best according to your own desires, you would think that when you elect them into power, they will do what you need them to do. But you see, all of those things, all of those what you call it, all of your grievances, to them, the politicians and their sponsors are meaningless to them. The sponsors and the politicians do not care about parliament. The only reason why they actually talk about those things is so that they can get your vote, to get your support. So when they get your support, they get your vote. When they get your vote, they get the position. When they get the position, they have got the decision-making power. So when you've got the power to make that decision, so they can sell that power to the highest bidder. Or rather, maybe they had already a sponsor who took them from the ground, and therefore they'll begin to execute the demands of that sponsor. as long as that sponsor is able to control them whilst they're on top, it's possible that that sponsor can catapult someone to the top, and once the person is at the top, be taken over by another sponsor who can buy them at a higher price. That is why then you have got what they call corruption, tenderpreneurship, and these gifts, gifts that come to renovating a minister's house and stuff like that. These are monies from sponsors to sponsor the politician who is there, who's got that decision making authority. I mean, on whether to build a road or not. There is somebody who owns a construction company that will get 200 million rands for actually getting the tender to build a certain road. So maybe the previous minister did not see an importance of building that road. But this one, who's sponsored by this guy who has got the company that builds roads, will come and and give a go ahead to that project that the other minister didn't want. In South Africa, we know about the arms deal. The arms deal in the early 2000s. You understand? Which is a headache to ANC right now. South Africa had to buy arms that they actually did not need and even did not afford as a country. But they were political decisions that were made by people that were in authority for those things to happen. That is the allegation. Okay, according to the newspapers. Not what I'm saying, but that's what the newspapers allege. So allegedly, this is what happened. So that would be, if proven to be true, a classic example of what I am talking about. That the political power is used as a leverage for business kickbacks by the rich and powerful and the elite who run the world. And these people who run the world will always run the world. So I am going to explain in another video on the next one why the rich people run the world, why they will always run the world, and even why they should run the world. And it is a good thing that it is them who run the world instead of us poor people.